There was once a boy named Daniel who grew up in a very small town. He was not born rich, he was not born talented, and he was not born lucky. But Daniel had one thing that nobody could take away from him. He had a burning desire to change his life. This is the story of how a boy with nothing turned his struggles into success. Daniel's family was very poor. His father worked in a factory and his mother cleaned houses. Sometimes they could not even afford 3 meals a day. When Daniel went to school, he felt different from the other children. His clothes were old, his shoes were broken, and he never had new books. Other kids laughed at him, and sometimes even teachers looked down on him. One day, a teacher said, "Daniel, you should not dream too big. Life is hard for people like you." Those words cut deep into his heart. But Daniel quietly told himself, "One day, I will prove them wrong." Daniel loved reading. He didn't have money to buy books, so he borrowed them from the library. Every night when everyone else was asleep, he studied under a small candle or sometimes even under the dim light of a street lamp. He dreamed of becoming a successful engineer, but the road to that dream was not easy. He failed many exams. Sometimes he wanted to give up. But every time he felt weak, he remembered his parents working day and night. He thought, if I quit now, then all their sacrifices will mean nothing. So he kept going. When Daniel finished high school, he applied to a big university. He worked so hard for the entrance exam. But when the results came, he failed. For 3 days, he cried. He locked himself in his room. He thought, maybe the teacher was right. Maybe people like me can never succeed. But on the 4th day, he wiped his tears and stood in front of the mirror. He looked into his own tired eyes and said, "Daniel, you are not a quitter. You will try again." Daniel did not have money for books or coaching classes, so he took a part-time job washing dishes in a small restaurant. In the day, he worked. At night, he studied. Sometimes he was so tired that he fell asleep with the book still in his hands. People laughed at him again. They said, "Daniel, stop wasting your time. You will never make it." But Daniel just smiled and replied softly, "One day you will see." A year later, Daniel sat again for the university entrance exam. This time, he gave everything he had. When the results were announced, he passed. It was one of the happiest days of his life, but his challenges were not over. At university, Daniel faced new problems. He was surrounded by students from rich families. They had laptops, expensive books, and private tutors. Daniel had none of these things. He often felt small, but he never gave up. Instead, he used the library every day. He borrowed old secondhand books. He studied harder than anyone else. When others partied, Daniel studied. When others slept, Daniel worked. Slowly, his grades started to improve. One day, there was a big competition at the university, a project that could win a scholarship. Daniel wanted to join, but he had no money for materials, so he collected scrap parts from the junkyard. He spent nights building his project with broken wires and old machines. Other students laughed at him, but when the competition day came, Daniel's project worked perfectly. The judges were amazed. He won first prize and received a full scholarship. For the first time in his life, Daniel felt that his hard work was finally paying off. But success is never a straight road. Even after the scholarship, Daniel faced failures. He lost more competitions. He made mistakes. Sometimes professors rejected his ideas. But Daniel had learned one important lesson. Failure is not the end. Failure is just a step towards success. So every time he fell, he got back up. Years passed and Daniel graduated at the top of his class.
Soon after, he applied for a job at a famous company. At the interview, the manager asked, "Daniel, what makes you think we should hire you? You don't come from a rich background." Daniel looked straight into his eyes and said, "Sir, I may not have wealth, but I have something stronger. I have persistence. I know how to fight. I know how to survive, and I never, ever quit." The manager smiled. "Congratulations, Daniel. You're hired." Daniel worked hard at the company. Within a few years, he was promoted again and again. Eventually, he became one of the youngest directors in the firm. One day, he returned to his old school. The same teacher who once told him not to dream too big was still there. Daniel walked up to him, smiled, and politely said, "Sir, thank you for your words. Because of you, I promised myself that I would never give up. Today, I stand here not as the poor boy you once knew, but as someone who proved that nothing is impossible." Daniel's story teaches us something powerful. Life will test you. People will doubt you. You will fail again and again. But if you believe in yourself, work hard, and never quit, you can turn your struggles into strength, your pain into power, and your dreams into reality. Remember this: the world belongs to those who refuse to quit. So whenever you feel like giving up, think of Daniel and whisper to yourself, "I will not quit. My time will come."